Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 162. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this episode and this channel where all we do is talk and discuss about new movies that come out in theaters or in streaming. We'll break them down on this podcast, give you some high-level thoughts, non-spoilers first, and then we'll move into the spoiler section, tell you about our favorite moments, our favorite performances, and then wrap it all up by deciding, after watching this movie one time, is it timeless? Is it something that I would want to rewatch in the future various different times or maybe even own in physical media? Now, we're going to be talking about a film that I have been anticipating for quite some time now, but before we do that, episode 161 of the Timeless Movie Podcast is available on platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast. Give it a listen. I ended up talking about Guillermo del Toro's newest film, Frankenstein. It is out on Netflix now. Give that episode a listen. I really enjoyed the production. I liked how it looked, but did I think it was timeless? Well, you're going to have to listen to that episode in order to hear my full thoughts. And after you listen, leave your own comments on Spotify and on YouTube, and let me know if you agree or disagree with me. Also, anybody on Apple Podcasts and wanting to leave their own comments or leave their own review notes, well, hey, send me an email, timelessmoviepod@gmail.com. You can reach out to me, send me your full review of Frankenstein or any other movie, and I'm happy to read that, give you guys some additional comments and questions, and maybe shout you out on the podcast as well. All right, that is all the housekeeping I wanted to get to. Let's start talking about this week's movie, in which we are talking about the new film in the Predator franchise. It is called Predator Badlands. This one is directed by Dan Trachtenberg, and it stars Elle Fanning as well as Demetrius Kolomatangi. I hope I pronounced his name right. If I didn't, I apologize. This has been one of the more anticipated movies I've had on my list. A couple reasons why. First one is because it's action. I'm a sucker for action movies, anything that involves any cool types of either fights or any types of breakdowns of, action between different creatures. I'm all in for that. And then the second piece of it is the sci-fi element. I enjoy the films that kind of take you out of your real world and make you visit a different planet, make you visit a different world that is, maybe a little familiar, but obviously very different and something that you've never been able to experience. And so those are two of the bigger reasons why I wanted to check out Predator Badlands. Now that I got to check it out on opening night, let's go ahead and move over to the non-spoiler thoughts. That way we can kind of cover a little bit of the plot synopsis and what I thought about the movie. Okay, Predator Badlands, directed by Dan Trachtenberg. He actually has been having a lot of success as of late in regards to the Predator franchise. He actually made a couple years ago the film Prey. It actually only came out on Hulu, but I ended up watching it and I was so surprised at how invested I was in the character. I was so intrigued by how he was able to make this, and it looked like a really high budget type of a film. The effects were amazing. And so now Dan has been given the ability to play in the sandbox of Predator a little bit more. He actually also made an animated film called Predator Killer of Killers. I also have heard that it has great reviews. I have not had a chance to check it out, but hoping to do that now that I've watched Predator Badlands. And like I mentioned before, you don't really have a big cast in this film. You essentially have two main characters, Elle Fanning and Demetrius Kolomatangi. And they are essentially the two characters that you see. There's a couple of other visual effect characters, but we'll get to that in a little bit. The plot synopsis of Predator Badlands is essentially this. You are introduced to the character named Dek. Dek is played by Demetrius Kolomatangi, and he is a young predator, or they call him a runt, because he's actually on the smaller side of predators, and he actually lives on the planet of Yautja Prime. And essentially, he is looking to perform his first hunt in order to become a part of the clan that his family is from. And as he's going through this process, and you're kind of getting a little bit of the breakout, or not even the breakout, but the setup of how you can become a part of this clan, in order to do this, you have to actually go through and visit a planet, find a prey, and basically bring that prey's head as a trophy in order to prove that you do belong on this clan and a part of the Yautja. And so that's essentially what Deck has to do. And because he's been ridiculed for how small he is, how he's a runt, how he's a weakling, he ends up trying to prove himself, and he ends up choosing really the beast or animal that has not been able to be killed by any predator at Yautja. And so he chooses that animal, an animal that has never been killed, never been captured, and now he has to basically do the impossible. He either has to bring the head of the Kalisk, and if not, he's basically not going to be a part of the clan and maybe not even survive. And so that's essentially the story of Predator Badlands. What did I think? Overall, I thought Predator Badlands, after leaving the theater, my feelings were this movie rocked. I had such a blast watching this. And again, it feeds into who I am as a person. I love action movies. I love films that, again, are kind of like an escape from reality. And so this film just took me in a specific direction, and I just did not look back. From beginning to end, I was enjoying every single action-packed scene and everything that the film was showing me, the new worlds, the different creatures that come up in this planet called Jenna, and you have all these different types of ideas. It all just worked so perfectly for me. But apart from the action, there's also some really great themes in this movie that, again, very simple, but very effective. And I think that's really when a movie can at least tries to strive for, right? Sometimes movies will try to give you a very big message, but it doesn't land or it doesn't execute the ending. In this film, the message is very simple. Being a part of a clan, and what are you willing to do to be a part of it, right? What are you willing to sacrifice or change? And so that alone I thought was really just well executed in this film. There's a couple of other things that I really enjoyed about the movie, so let's go ahead and move over to pros and cons. That way I can really shed more light on why I enjoyed Predator Badlands and maybe some things that I didn't enjoy as much. Let's jump into pro number one. First one I got to call out is the dynamic between Thea, who is the Wayland-Yutani synth that is played by Elle Fanning, and Dek, who is played by Demetrius Kolomantangi. The dynamic of these two characters was just off the charts. And they just had really great chemistry. And you get glimpses of it in the trailers because they set you up really well that, okay, you have Dek on this dangerous planet where he has to find a prey, and he ends up having to reluctantly try to team up with a synth, which is in this case is Thea. But every single interaction that they had, every time they were having dialogue or conversation, it was organic. Nothing was forced. There's many times where other movies will have characters that are, very opposites of each other and they're forced to work together. And sometimes that it just doesn't vibe. In this film, it worked right from the get-go. Right when you see that Dek is more of like an alpha. He's like a lone soldier. Like he doesn't need anybody's help. And then you have Thea who's trying to give him that perspective of, hey, well, sometimes you have to really have more of a pack together. You have to work as a team. And so their interactions were not only just again, felt very believable, but also it was funny. At times, this might sound weird, and I don't know if this will really articulate the right way to kind of explain this movie, but at times it feels like Thea and Dek, their relationship almost feels like a buddy comedy movie. They're just, you have Thea who's more of the energetic, she's more lively, and you have Dek who's not even speaking English. He's speaking his own Yautja language. And you still have some great discussions and interactions. So there was a lot of funny moments that I'll point out maybe later on in the spoiler section if I remember. But that dynamic between Thea and Dek was probably one of the bigger highlights of the movie. And again, just kind of seeing how you can really make friends with different creatures or people you never would have thought of. So really dug that. Second pro for me on Predator Badlands was I really enjoyed that. And this, again, kind of credit to Dan and the rest of the team that wrote the film. You're in the Predator franchise, so you think, okay, let's go ahead and use some of the great weapons of a Predator, right? The invisibility cloak. You think about the heat scanner. You think about all these weapons. In this film, they show a little bit of that, but they don't rely on it. They actually force Dek to go through on this hunt and have to use other weapons. You see him pull out like a heat sword or heat blade that cuts through prey. You see him use some type of a bow and arrow. You have these grenades that actually freeze the prey that ends up hitting. And so I really enjoyed that they didn't just rely on the same old of the Predator universe. Yes, those are really great elements of this franchise that everybody would recognize, especially like the heat scanner one. I feel like that's the most common one that people would really understand, even if you maybe have seen one or two Predator films. But I just love that, hey, yes, those are elements, those are little callbacks, but we're not going to have Deck rely on those. No, this is his first hunt. He's experiencing this process of becoming a part of the Yautja clan. So let's have him use other weapons. And so, again, I really enjoyed that. And I also got to call out that I feel like Predator and really this franchise, they had this, at least this creature of the Predator, has some of the best technology and the best weapons in sci-fi. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree. I'm trying to think of like other sci-fi franchises where they've introduced so many cool gadgets, so many cool weapons that they end up introducing and leveraging whenever they're trying to hunt something down. I mean, the only other equivalent that I can think of that's not really a creature is more like Batman, where you see all of the gadgets, all of the things that he's able to come up in different films and series. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. What other sci-fi or creature or property has some of the coolest technology? Because I feel like Predator is probably number one for me. All right, third pro that I want to call out for Predator Badlands is the actual planet of Jenna, where the setting of this movie takes place. It's essentially a planet full of creatures that can essentially kill you. And you would think, okay, yeah, this is maybe just big monsters or creatures that can eat you. No, sometimes it's even just simple things like grass that is just, I think it's all called razor grass, because every blade of grass can actually cut and pierce your skin. Or you have this like exploding cactus that paralyzes it's any creatures or anybody that passes by if you end up getting picked by one of those, the actual thorns of the cactus. And so the entire planet itself, how they visually set it up, how they represented it, of how dangerous it is, I really just dug that entire process. That like, hey, look, you not only is a predator scary, but we're going to show you that he's not even the scariest creature here. There are so many things that can kill him, and they can take him out. And so I don't know, that kind of a feeling of a planet that you just don't know if Deck can even survive. It just adds a little bit more stakes. I knew that Deck was not going to get eliminated or killed, but it's still cool to know that there's this planet that at every corner something can come out and surprise you and catch you off guard. So you really have to be on notice the entire way through that planet. And obviously Thea helps out Deck in those cases, but just wanted to call that out. Just the entire planet of Jenna, again, expanding the lore of the Predator franchise, introducing these kind of planets that just make it very interesting. And again, it kind of gave me a little bit of sometimes when you're kind of seeing some of these creatures, kind of gives me vibes of other types of sci-fi movies, or even visiting some of the planets that you see in this film, like Yautja. It kind of reminded me of Dune. You see a bunch of sand, a bunch of mountain ranges, all this different stuff. It all just adds to the excitement that I get when I watch a sci-fi film. But that's going to be my third pro, the planet of Jenna, and how cool, how creative they were able to be in order to just create these monsters, these creatures, these deadly things that live on this planet, and everything can kill you. So really love that. And then last but not least, I wanted to call out the visual effects. Shout out to the VFX team, the CGI group that kind of builds a lot of these different types of sets, as well as all the creatures that were made for Predator Badlands. And even like Deck, like, the face, like the fangs that he has, whenever he would give out a primal scream, it just, oh man, it all looked so well done. It never looked out of place. And I think that's going to be the key in a lot of films that do use a lot of CGI, use a lot of visual effects. You never want to be an audience member and notice, oh, okay, I kind of see I see the uncanny valley, or I see where that doesn't really look that good or smooth. And in this case, whether you're in the planet of Jenna, whether you're looking and following Deck, even Thea, for most of the movie, and this isn't a spoiler, you see her in the trailer, she has no legs. And that effect was just executed so well. She's on the back of deck the entire movie, and there's points where she gets into some fight sequences as well. She has to try to defend herself or help out deck, and she has no legs, and it all looks so well, so smooth, and again, never looks like it like wonky. Like, oh, okay, I can see where that's kind of fake. No, they show like the synth, like the internal components of a synth, like in that body of Thea. So really great job in regards to how they were able to represent all those visual effects in Predator Badlands. All right, those are all of the pros that I had. Again, pretty obvious that I would really enjoy some of these types of action elements and visual effects. Again, those are kind of my things. But let me call out a couple of things that were nitpicks to me. Again, this movie wasn't perfect, but a couple of things that I noticed when I was watching the movie. I've only seen it once, but first con that I had, or really just a nitpick, this item didn't bother me too much, but I did notice that there was a lot of hilarious scenes, and I enjoyed them. I was laughing out loud various different times whenever it was Thea and Deck, or Deck responding to Thea in some way. It was all funny, but there was this one moment where there was a hilarious bit that they had when Thea and Deck are together. They're kind of building a little campfire and kind of, resting for the night in order to continue the hunt the next day. And there's like an extended bit that goes maybe a little bit too long. That was just a little con. I could totally see people maybe calling that out as like, hey, well, some of the jokes just kind of go a little bit over what they need to do. So that was just a little slight nitpick on mine. Again, it didn't ruin the experience for me, and it's not a major flaw, but just something I noticed. And then the second con that I have is towards the ending, there's a situation where a creature ends up getting taken out. And I feel like it was bypassed really quickly. This is kind of where I guess my true con is. I would have loved to spend even more time on this planet of Jenna towards the end in order to have a really good resolution. And I still enjoyed the ending, but I just felt like this one portion of it, and it's making it very hard because I can't spoil it too much. But there's just a creature that just completely gets overlooked after they get destroyed. And I feel like there should have been a little bit more, one scene that kind of highlights a little bit more of the impact or the emotion of this creature just getting taken out. So those are the only nitpicks and cons that I have for Predator Badlands. Let's now segue into the next question, which is going to be, should you check this movie out in theaters? Is this worth a watch for you guys to get a ticket? In my personal opinion, I would say, heck yes. Please check this movie out in theaters. Go see it in Dolby Cinema. That's where I saw it. It was amazing. The sound quality and the design was all incredible. Or if you prefer IMAX, that's another great opportunity too. I would also say that the film is worth it just for the action and the hilarious moments alone. Anytime you see Deck and Thea just interacting with each other and having Thea be basically a backpack for Deck, it's just so freaking hilarious. And so that, I think, would be my personal recommendation. Is I think you guys should go check this movie out in theaters. It is definitely worth your time, and it's only an hour and 50 minutes. So it is super quick, paced very well, and has so many action sequences that I think you guys would enjoy. All right, I went a little long there on the non-spoiler thoughts, but we still have to talk about spoilers. So if you do not want to be spoiled for Predator Badlands, please jump out of the video now, jump out of the audio podcast, watch the movie, then come back, and then in the comments or in email, timelessmoviepod@gmail.com, send me an email. Let me know what you thought about Predator Badlands. Am I way off? Am I being too nice to this kind of a movie? Let me know. I really want to hear your opinions on this film. All right, hopefully that gives you guys enough time in order to jump out. That way you don't get spoiled because we're jumping right into it. First question we got to ask in the spoiler section: is Predator Badlands timeless? Is it something that I would want to rewatch in the future? Easy answer for me. This is going to be a definite yes. I'm pretty sure you guys aren't surprised if you know me and you know how much I enjoy action and sci-fi and just things that highlight different worlds. To me, this is a movie that I would love to rewatch. I would say recency bias, but I would feel like I need to watch Prey again, but I enjoyed Predator Badlands more than Prey. Just a little bit. I think Prey is just so clever and how simple the story is, but this one is also very effective. Now, let me explain why I think this film is timeless. There's a couple of things that I think really work for me and might work for you guys if you end up watching this movie as well, or maybe rewatching it. First reason I think this is timeless is because of the fact that the film does a great job in making you care and connect with Deck, the main character. He, again, right from the beginning, he is a runt. He is a smaller predator of the Yautja. He is not as big as his uh, brother named Quay. And his father actually at the beginning of the movie tells his brother, like, hey, I thought you were supposed to get rid of him. We need to cull the weak. We need to get rid of runts like this because they're not going to help our clan. We need the strongest. And so right from the get-go, you get this feeling of, okay, well, now Deck is the underdog, right? Because his own father doesn't want him. His brother's trying to get him prepared for his first hunt. And what ends up happening? Well, his father wants to get rid of Deck. Quay steps up for him. His own brother steps up for him and says, no, he's going to go on his first hunt. He's going to try to get the Calisk. He's going to bring home the trophy and become a clan member. And instead of the choice that his brother Quay has, is he has a choice of either killing Deck and getting rid of the weak or having to get killed himself. And so what does he do? Well, he protects Deck and he sends him off on his mission. And Deck's father ends up killing his brother Quay. And so right from that beginning portion of it, it immediately got me hooked because now it's a revenge story, right? Now it's I need to avenge my brother. I need to get back at my father and prove to him not only that I can pull off this hunt, I can capture the animal, the creature that nobody is able to capture, and then prove to my father that I am part of the clan. And then also get back at my father because you took the one person that I loved, my brother. And so that alone, I think, was sufficient for me to just get immediately hooked onto the character. And I wanted him to just make it all the way, make it through your first hunt, make it back to Yautja Prime so you can show your father who you are. So that was, again, the storytelling of that worked effectively for me. Second reason why I think also that this film is timeless in Predator Badlands is the journey that Deck then goes on Jenna, where he basically is stripped of all of his abilities and powers with the technology that he has. I mean, he's still very skilled fighter. He knows he has a very high IQ, and he tries to use his surroundings as best as he can. But in this process, throughout the narrative and the story of Predator Badlands, you see him basically getting stripped of everything. He gets all of his weapons taken away, all of the things that he thought he was going to be able to use, he no longer has. And what I love so much is that by the end of the movie, through the partnership of Thea, through understanding that he can't just be an alpha loner, he has to be a leader of a wolf pack. He has to be a leader of a team and try to help and assist where he can. And as he learns that process, he starts understanding, okay, let me then take advantage of this dangerous environment that I'm in Jenna. Let me use weapons from around here. Let me use the armor of a bison that I found and use that as a helmet. Let me use these types of tapeworms or these eels that shoot out acid. Let me use that to my advantage. Let me use the tooth of a dangerous animal and use that as one of my claws. And so it was him basically rebuilding himself back up, noticing that, hey, I don't need the technology of Yautja Prime. If I'm a great warrior, if I am a wolf pack leader, I can use anything in order to protect myself and my other clan members. And so that whole, message of, like, again, being able to rebuild yourself and just using what the things around you and just his entire setup, how Deck looked at the end of the movie was even cooler than what he had at the beginning. He had like a mask, he had like the shoulder, like a scanner that would, that could just eliminate different types of prey. And at the end, again, he just looked more primal. And I love that touch. I love that little kind of design of just kind of stripping him down and making him just look the most simple as possible, but still making him very dangerous. So that was another reason why I really just dug that whole process and the story of Deck. Third reason why I think this film is timeless is I mentioned this as one of my pros, but it's the team aspect that you eventually get to see in this film. Not only is it Deck and Thea, but there's a third member. And this third member is this visual effects creature named Bud. He is he almost looks like a combination of like some type of like an armored monkey in a way, because he has like armored plates, but he looks like a chimpanzee in a way. Very strange. I don't think I'm really describing his character much, but I actually like that they didn't show him at all in the trailer. They never highlighted this character, and he was a surprise. And in most cases, sometimes when you have a character like this, because this character of Bud, he was kind of like a comic relief character. He would do funny things and he would, make these weird noises, but it all worked. And then when you had these three characters together, working together in order to just accomplish whatever their mission was, to grab the Kalisk or to kill the Kalisk, I don't know, everything about this dynamic between these three characters, it just worked. And Dak ended up learning from each one. Again, he learned that he needed to be kind and accepting to Bud and understand that, well, Bud is a part of my clan and I'm a part of Bud's clan. And then learning from Thea. Thea was really the guide of the planet. She understood what all these creatures were. She understood that there's a couple of weaknesses that we can exploit. And so having all three of them together was just that team up, it worked. Again, I'm going to keep repeating that, but it was just something that they nailed the chemistry of all these three characters working together, and it never went overboard. It never went too funny. It never went too much into a comedy. There maybe are a couple scenes that were overextended a little bit just to make a couple of audience members laugh, but other than that, the team up of these three characters, Bud, Deck, and Thea, oh man, yeah, I enjoyed every scene that they had together. Last item that I have here, which is kind of a blend of why I think it's timeless, but also my favorite scene. I think the action in this film is really just very creative. And one of the creative elements was Thea. So, like I mentioned before, Thea is a Wayland-Yutani synth. But right from the beginning of the movie, she doesn't have legs. She actually got attacked by the Kalisk. And so she's walking on her hands, or she's a backpack for Deck. But there is this one cool action sequence in the third act where she eventually finds her legs, and her legs are kind of like programmed to try to find her. And there's this awesome moment where she's fighting off two different synths and her legs come out. And I don't know, just the idea and the concept, me describing it is not going to make any sense, but just picture having, in this case, Elle Fanning's character of Thea, the top portion of her body fighting some synths with just her hands and her torso, and then her legs jumping and knocking out the synths as they are set up by Thea's upper body. Just the entire aspect of this and the choreography of this action sequence, not only was it just so clever, but I think also from a visual effects perspective, the legs and the torso of Thea, it never looked weird. It never looked wonky. It made sense. You would see her legs just walk and you would see no top portion of the legs, but they would still move very robotic. And, just, I don't know, the way that they thought about that idea of having Thea basically use her upper half and her lower half in a fight sequence was, I think, just probably one of the more clever action scenes. And that was probably my favorite moment of the movie because I just was not expecting it. I was laughing and enjoying it at the same time. This, I think, leads me into my favorite performance of the film. I really thought that Elle Fanning nailed it, not only as Thea, but another surprise, there is also another synth robot that looks exactly like Thea, and it's another Wayland-Yutani robot. And essentially, this other synth is called Tessa. And so, you basically have this kind of sister dynamic of Thea and Tessa, and how Elle Fanning plays both of them is just, oh man, she did a great job of trying to differentiate the two. You have Thea, who you get to meet and obviously interact with Deck and Bud. She's like the lively character, the energetic one. She has this emotion. She cares about what's going on between Deck and Bud. And then you have Tessa, who is more of the cold-blooded synth. She doesn't have those same types of emotions. She's trying to exploit every single creature, every single thing in order to complete the mission that Mother has set out. So my favorite performance, again, is Elle Fanning. She, I think, did a great job, and she delivered on being able to perform two different characters in the same film. And she keeps the tradition of 2025 being a great year where one actor plays two characters. We've gotten it in Sinners. We've gotten it in The Monkey. We've gotten it in Mickey 17. We've gotten it so many times. And so we're adding Elle Fanning to the list because she knocked it out of the park as both Thea and as Tessa. And again, she gave each one a different type of, a different type of a light. You have, again, Thea, who is much more colorful. She has much more of an actual sentiment towards the characters around her. Whereas Tessa, she would be more of a synth. She's like, no, I don't care about this. All I care about is getting my mission done and complete. So that was, again, one of the things that I just really dug about this movie. And again, one of the various things that I just keep rambling on about. But I think that's all I got in regards to Predator Badlands. I went very long, 30 minutes, just talking about how much I adored this movie. It just was so fun. I can't wait to watch it again. But who cares about what I think? What about all of you? Anybody listening out there? What are your thoughts of Predator Badlands? I want to know. Let's have a fun discussion about this movie and see if we agree or disagree. Maybe your favorite performance was Dak. Maybe your favorite fight scene was something different. Let me know. Leave a comment on the podcast wherever you're listening, or send me an email at timelessmoviepod@gmail.com. All right, everybody. This has been episode number 162 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to my full thoughts of Predator Badlands. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new film and we decide after watching it once, is it timeless? I'm excited also for next week's episode because we're going to be covering the new film from Edgar Wright, and it is called The Running Man. So get ready for that one. Be on the lookout. And if you're not following the channel, well, please subscribe, leave us a like, do all the good stuff in order to support this channel for more content in the future. All right, everybody. Appreciate you guys listening. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you later.